Welcome back to the Maelstrom, ladies and gentlemen. We have another Warhammer 40k battle report for you today. 2,000 points, Necrons versus Thousand Suns. We're going to be playing Race to Victory from Chapter Approved 2017, and deployment is going to be the angles. Necrons will be deploying out of this corner, and the Thousand Suns will be deploying out of the opposite corner. So we are trying to be the first player to achieve 10 of the tactical objectives. The first player to do so scores 3 bonus points, and the game ends in the end of that battle round. If that does not happen, then we play to the normal end as usual. First Blood, Linebreaker, and Slay the Warlord are in place as always. We'll be right back with the armies. First up, we have the forces of Dagon Dynasty. They're going to be playing with the rules for Mefrit today. Our Warlord is a Catacomb Command Barge with the Nightmare Shroud, and he is going to take Immortal Pride as his Warlord trait. He has a Gauss Cannon and a Staff of Light. He is joined by a Cryptek with a Chronometron. Dedicated transports, we have a Ghost Ark, and then in heavy support, we have a Monolith. The last support unit before we get into the bulk of the army is a trio of heavy destroyers. Then for Mefrit's foot presence, we have 3 squads of 10 Immortals. They have Gauss Blasters. And then we have 2 squads of 18 Warriors and 1 squad of 16 Warriors. So that is Necron contribution. We will be right back with the Thousand Suns.
Okay, so the Thousand Suns are organized into a battalion. The first HQ and the Warlord is an Exalted Sorcerer, and his Warlord trait will be High Magister, and he's wearing the helm, the Third Eye. The second HQ is a second Exalted Sorcerer, and he is carrying the Dark Matter Crystal. Our final HQ will be Ahriman. Then in the troops, I have 3 squads of 14 Zangors, and 2 squads of 9 Rubrics that are mounted in Rhinos. In the fast attacks, I have a squad of 5 Spawn. For elites, I have a squad of 5 Scarab Occult Terminators with a Hellfire Missile Rack. And rounding out the list in the heavy supports, I have a pair of Hades Autocannon armed Forge Fiends.
Alright, you have seen the armies and you have seen the table. We will be back as we get stuck into the Maelstrom. Alright, the Necrons finished up first by 1 unit. We'll go ahead and walk down them. We've got 1 squad of warriors stretched along the front here, and then we get to the center meat of the army. 2 squads of immortals are to the left of the Lord and the Cryptek here. The 3rd squad of immortals to their right. We then have the 2nd block of warriors here in the backfield. Ghost Ark waiting as a repair bay, and then the last squad of warriors along the front here, bolstered by the Monolith. Heavy destroyers are coming through the gate on the Monolith. Other than that, we are 100% committed. Alright, turn it over to Josh for his son's deployment.
So we set up 1 squad of Zangors on our far right with a Forge Fiend sitting on the objective in our backfield. And then our Warlord set up next to the Forge Fiend, an empty Rhino sitting there in front of him to provide cover so he's not the closest character or closest unit. The 5 Spawn on the ground there underneath the gantry. Both of our 9-man squads and our other Exalted Sorcerer are on the platforms with an empty Rhino underneath them, and then finishing out our left flank, the other 2 squads of Zangors and a Forge Fiend with Ahriman in reserve.
Alright, so the Necrons did finish first. They're going to get +1 to their die roll for the initial turn, giving us a mighty 2, and the Suns are coming up with a 2 as well. So, as always, we're going to be doing a reroll here. That's going to give us 6 for the Necrons, and a 4 for the Thousand Suns. Necrons will take first turn. They're going to begin their shambling advance, and we will be back once the initial volley of Gauss has gone out. Necrons open the game with Secure Objective 3, behind enemy lines, and Secure Objective 2. Objective 2 is back here, so that one is out of the question. But Objective 3 is on this flank. We went ahead and overextended a little bit to try to get to it. We went ahead and brought the destroyers through and moved them over to that objective. We then did an advance on this end. We used My Will Be Done on this squad of Immortals. The warriors in front of them moved forward as well. And then we pushed the Ghost Ark and the rest of the body of infantry forward. The only exception was this squad, who fanned out to prevent a backfield drop early here in the game. The other squad then extended out to this end to put some fire on the Zangors. Down here we were able to bring down one Zangor. And then on this end, not very much as far as the anti-tank shooting. The infantry that were in range took a methodical destruction. They were able to bring down all but one of the Zangors. And the last Zangor did pay 2 points to stay in the fight just to keep from giving up first blood. So we will score 1 point for objective 3. We fired the heavy destroyers here with an extermination protocols. Only scored 2 hits, did 2 wounds, and both bounced off of his invul. We then shot him with the monolith, 3 hits. 3 wounds, and he saved 2, and the last one did 1 wound, which is just going to regrow. So nothing on the anti-tank front. So we were able to bring down most of the Zangors and score 1 point. So that will be a 1-0 lead for the Necrons going into the bottom of 1. Thousand Sun response coming up next. Alright, the Suns begin this turn with priority orders on defend objective 2. It's almost like that guy's psychic and knew where to stand. Domination and hold the line. Go ahead, Josh.
So, we didn't make a whole lot of advances, some conservative movement. We moved the rubrics up along the gantry-way. No reason to abandon cover at this point. Considering the cards we drew, there was no reason to rush the objectives that we set up to rush. So, we pulled the lone survivor from the crippled squad back. And we redressed and pulled back the Zangors here on my left. Ahriman kind of slid back to provide room for them to move. The spawn advanced up behind cover across the middle for future turns in case they're needed in combat. The only major advance that we made were with the Zangors on this end. We moved them up their full movement, and then both rubric squads threw their powers Glamour and Weaver on that squad, and then the Warlord put Warp Time on them to get them in range to charge, which they subsequently did after we finished shooting. As far as shooting goes, we knocked down 1 heavy destroyer with the Forge Fiend on the rocks that survived all of the anti-tank fire in the first turn. We put a Demon Forge on him, we wounded him 5 times, but we were still only able to bring down 1 of that squad of 3. The rubrics combined what fire they could onto Immortals down here. Grand total, I think, between the rubrics and the other Forge Fiend, we got 4 Immortals. 3 out of 1 squad and 1 out of another squad. So we're going to work this combat and then we'll be back. Alright, close combat wraps up. The Zangors managed to kill 8 warriors in combat and lost 1 of their own in return, despite the -1 to hit and the 4-up invuls. What are you going to do? Sometimes the invuls are just not there for the poor guys. But we did manage with our consolidation moves to pin them in place so that we could not be shot in the coming turn. So hopefully they'll be able to clean up and clear up in the coming turns.
I needed to lose 1 more to get me safe, but I didn't hardly make it. Oh well, so those guys are going to be tied up going into the next turn. Zinch is not going to score 1 yet. But at the end of my turn, they will be scoring priority orders received for defend 2. There's no way I'm getting rid of that guy. So right now it is 1-0 in favor of the Necrons. We will be back as Necrons finish up turn 2. Alright, Necron cards are still not being very kind. We got Code of Combat, kill one of his characters with one of my characters in close combat. Area Denial, and we are still holding behind enemy lines because we did discard Secure Objective 2. So we went ahead and moved our advance around this flank a little bit more. We were unable to get the Heavy Destroyer back. We got 1 of the 4 Immortals back that were down. However, these warriors made up for it. All 8 of them reanimated. 6 on the initial try, and then the last 2 after the Ghost Ark's help. Ghost Ark went ahead and shot forward to get some rapid fire in range on those Zangors, but it was not needed. We shot all but 1 of them down before he fired, so we went ahead and fired the Ghost Ark into this Rhino. We're only able to get a couple of points through. He made a lot of 5s there. We were able to destroy the Forge Fiend though. The 2 heavy destroyers didn't give him any help this turn. Both hit, both wounded, got through the invuls and did 11 of his 12 wounds. And then we went ahead and hit him with the particle whip off of the monolith because we didn't have another real good target for that, and that finished it off. Between the monolith and the other infantry, we killed all but 1 Zangor from each squad down here. We also managed to whittle 1 of the spawn down with the Gauss cannon from the catacomb barge, but that was about it. We're not going to have any charges, but we do have the fight here to do, so we'll do that, and then we will be back with the end of the turn results. Combat rolls to an end. The warriors were unable to do anything to the Zangors. Zangors fought twice using Cycle of Slaughter, and that ended up killing 10 of the warriors out of the squad on this flank. But they are still in range of the Overlord over here because they are stretched back here and still got a few guys hanging out. So they are still in the fight for the moment. The Thousand Sons will score 5 points for the Defend Objective 2. And the Necrons are going to score 1 for area denials, and they also scored First Blood. So that'll make it 3-5 in favor of the Thousand Sons. Bottom of turn 2 coming up next. Alright, for turn 2, the Thousand Sons draw Blood and Guts and no prisoners and are still holding Hold the Line.
Alright, so we moved the rubrics up further along the gantry so that they could provide some fire going down on the Immortals. We brought the Terminators in on the gantry with them, and between the Terminators, both squads of rubrics, and the Forge Fiend, we managed to kill the squad of Immortals that was in the middle of the table. The small amount of psychic offense, the 1 smite that we did throw off of the Terminator Sergeant, killed the 1 warrior that locked the Zangors. The Zangors then made an insane charge. We rolled an 11. We needed a 12. For the longest time, we thought I hadn't made it, and then we remembered he adds 1 to his rolls because of their instrument. So they did make the 12-inch charge that will get them into those warriors for at least 1 round of combat. The warriors that were left here in the middle, the remnant that there were 4 left, the spawn made a charge on them thanks to a warp time from Armin. But the Catacomb Command Barge did heroically intervene into that combat. Down here, Armin cast Diabolic Strength on himself, and the Rhino over here behind the gantryway locked the Ghost Arc in order to soak Overwatch, and Armin made a charge in against it.
Alright, so we got a couple of combats to work, and then we will be back.
Okay, combat wraps up. The Zangors knocked down 5 warriors. They deigned not to close the gap and respond, but that is 5 that will need reanimation in the next turn. The Spawn wiped out the 4 survivors from the Wounded Squad, and the Catacomb Command Barge completely whiffed in combat. He only hit once and rolled no wounds. Armin, hitting the Ghost Arc here, he played a Quantum Deflection to minimize the amount of damage that could be done. He still did get 3 wounds through. We got 1 that made it all the way through his saves and his Quantum Deflection. So the Ghost Arc has 11 left.
Alright, so that's it, right? Alright, Thousand Sons are going to score all 3 cards, so 3 more points to race to victory. That'll make it 3-8 in their favor. They have scored 5 objectives. Necrons have scored 2. Necron, turn 3, coming up next. Necrons are beginning turn 3 with Defend Objective 4, Assassinate, and Behind Enemy Lines. To start off with, we went ahead and peeled back here. A command wave was cast on these guys to give them a little bit better chance to punch these Zangors out. Between them and the Immortals, we managed to get 9 of the Zangors. Weaver Fates really held up against the Warriors and kept them in, but the Immortals were able to bring 4 more down as the turn went on. We were able to get all of the spawn. We used these Immortals and the Ghost Arc to take care of them along with the Command Barge, but that did bring the last of them down. On this end, the Destroyers managed to bring 6 of the 8 points out of the Rhino. We used our last command point on a reroll because we only needed a 3+. We rolled a 5 and a 1. We only needed a 3+ on that 1, but we rolled a 1 again. So that did not get it out of the way to shoot at Armin. We did have to go ahead and fire these warriors at it, but that did destroy it. The Monolith then fired on Armin and did him 3 wounds with all of its guns. Not very impressive there, but we did do a little bit of damage to him. These crazy warriors have been directed to go forward and sell their little soulless lives as dearly as possible. So they did make a charge against Armin. We're going to work that combat, and then we will be back. Alright, combat was short and sweet. Warriors managed 4 wounds, which Armin shrugged. He then squashed 3 warriors in return. The warriors are stuck back here through their Immortals, though, and they are going to be immune to morale. We do have a morale check here for the Zangors. On a 1, one of them will still be here. A 2, and there are no rerolls left. So that will be the end of the Zangors. But Armin's still hanging out. The Necrons score 1 point for behind enemy lines. We will turn it back over to the Thousand Suns. Going into the bottom of the turn, it is 4-8 in favor of the Suns. Alright, the Suns are going to be playing turn 3 with Secure 1, Secure 2, and Ritual Slaughter. Secure 1 is here, and Secure 2 is here. Josh, walks down your turn, sir.
Okay, so we continued to move along the gantry-way. No reason to commit yet, considering the cards that we drew were already well in hand without the rubrics having to advance out of their covered position. So we just moved them down the gantry-way to put fire down on the Immortals in the center. We combined all of the survivors after some psychic mishap. We had one of our sorcerers attempt to throw Glamour of Zinch onto Armin to make him harder for the heavy destroyers to kill in the coming turn. And unfortunately, he rolled 2 6s, blew his head off, killed 2 rubrics in each squad himself, and 1.5 of my Terminators in the resulting Perils of the Warp explosion. That's about par for the course for my squad sorcerers, unfortunately. But at least some of the other powers did exactly what I needed them to do. Armin cast Smite and killed 4. The Warlord cast Smite and killed another 3 or 4. The sorcerer up here cast Smite and killed 2 more of them. We laid down in total between psychic and shooting 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 11 warriors in the psychic and shooting phase just from Armin's pistol and psychic powers. Can't ask for a lot more than that out of a psychic phase, even with the casualties that we took. Armin also cast Diabolic Strength on himself, and the sorcerer standing on the gantry-way behind the armored wall of rubrics cast Prescience onto the Terminators. However, they didn't need it. They made all of their hits on higher than 2s, leaving 2?
Yep,
right?
2 Immortals.
Between the rubrics and the Forge Fiend, we left 2 Immortals standing out of that squad. Hopefully, he doesn't reanimate all of those. He hasn't reanimated a single Immortal yet this game, so we're hoping for that trend to continue. We had 1 assault. The Lone Zangor finally saw a squishy target where he couldn't get Overwatch, so he made a charge into the warriors that are surviving. I think there are 4 members of the squad left with Armin.
Yeah, something like that. Alright, we're going into the combat, and then we will be back.
Okay, so the combat rolls to an end. Armin did his job. He smacked 3 out of their boots. The Zangor, on the other hand, whiffed. 3 hits, 1 wound, made his armor save, even though it was a 5-up. All I needed was 1 out of the little guy, and it would have made a difference. Now I'm concerned that I'm going to have 18 screaming warriors back down my throat next turn.
Oh, let's hope so.
Can't ask for a whole lot more out of Armin, but the Zangor, man, come on.
Well, the good news is the Necrons now have lots of reanimation to make. That's the only time I make them is when I have a bunch. And I have a ton. So that is going to be a serious jump in the points, though. He gained 3 and I gained 2 because I will score Defend Objective 4 for holding this one for 2 turns. That'll give me 4 objectives scored and 6 points total. The Thousand Suns have now scored 8, though, because they will score all 3 points this turn, and that will give them a total of 11 points. So it is 6-11, but it really is starting to look like that race to victory is going to be what determines this. The Thousand Suns, even if I can outlast them, I don't think I'm going to have time to because they just need to get 2 objectives. So we're going to go ahead and see what we can do. Necrons are going to try to make a fight out of this and continue to bloody these Thousand Suns. We will be back after Necrons turn 4. Necron woes continue on the card front, unfortunately. Reclaim and Recapture came up. We thought we might have a shot at it if we rolled odds. We had a 50-50 there, but we did not come up lucky there. We did draw the even-numbered objectives. We also drew no prisoners, so we had to destroy units this turn, and Blood and Guts for close combat. For the even-numbered objectives, we've got 4 right here, and 6 and 2 are both on this end of the table. We might have been able to manage it if it was 1, 5, and 3, but no luck on the evens. The heavy destroyers moved up and once again did nothing. They fired here, 2 hits, rolled a 1 and a 2 to wound, so no damage at all. The rest of the army moved forward. We reanimated most of the warriors here. Immortals continued to fail to impress. We got 1 of the 9 that we rolled for. These were able to cut Armin down after that, along with the Zangor behind him with a few that split off. We fired the rest of our army up here. We were able to bring down 4 rubrics and a pair of Terminators. So we did score 2 of the 3 units. We're going to have to see if these guys fail their morale check to see if we can get the D3 points. But the Immortals are going to charge this Rhino first just to lock it up and prevent another secure objective 1 from closing the game up. We're going to do that combat and then we will be back. Alright, combat here went with predictable results, no damage done on either side. Rubrics rolled a 1 for their morale check. So Necrons are going to score 1 point for the turn. We're also going to discard, reclaim, and recapture. Let's see, that's going to put us at 7 with the Thousand Suns at 11. We've scored 5 to their 8. So we got to see what they're going to draw in the coming turn and see if they can score 2 more points and go ahead and close this one up. We will be back with Thousand Suns, turn 4. Alright, Suns draw advance behind enemy lines and power of the Cabal.
Alright, so with our objective draw, there was no need to continue out the rest of my turn. Behind enemy lines was achieved by using a dark matter crystal to jump the last 2 Terminators all the way into his deployment zone. We achieved advance by moving our units out of our deployment zone. It didn't even require any actual advance rolls or extra moves. We just moved them out of the deployment zone. And we went ahead and called it there because that is 10 objectives, ending the game immediately and scoring 3 bonus points for the Thousand Suns. Yep,
so final score 9-17 in favor of the Suns. Broke a very long dry spell. Glad to see that. Suns played a very solid game there. Psychic Face finally took off instead of just blowing his troops up. Still blew his troops up, but didn't just blow his troops up. So that made a huge difference and helped him a lot there. So we will have after action reviews and army lists at the blog as always. Be sure to give us a like on Facebook. That's an easy way to see our content as it comes out if you're on social media regularly. A subscription on YouTube though is what we're looking for more than anything. If you like what you saw, give us a subscription and give us a comment. Shout out what you saw that you liked, what you'd like to see in the future. As always guys, thanks for spending time with us today at the Maelstrom.